I can't hear you.
Not like you're on.
How's that? Leon, Commissioner Wilson?
Leon,
Yeah.
here, everything good?
Yeah.
All right, good. Good deal. All right, December 7th. Yeah, it's Pearl Harbor Day, y'all. So,
I know.
yep. Keep everybody, once again, keep everybody in your prayers that had to live through that. And each day that passes, there's more of them that are passing as well. So that was a very notorious time in the history of the United States. December 7th, 2023. Workshop, the County Commissioners. Concerning permits and inspections, and Melinda's here today along with LJ Engineering for a discussion on developing rules for something we don't see very often, pumped detention use in Liberty County subdivisions. And it would be quite interesting. We use detention and it's getting more and more used in the county, which it should be because it's flat here. But pump detention is a new critter. So let's check it out. Melinda, what you got?
I'm gonna refer to LJA. They're gonna give us some suggestions and I asked them to give us their thoughts on which direction we should go.
Yeah. Manuel, if y'all introduce yourselves so everybody will know.
I'm Manuel with LJ Engineering, and I have Cody here as one of our drainage engineers. So here recently, we received submittals from multiple developments that are trying to use pump detention. And looking at your regs, it doesn't have extensive criteria for what we've seen in other clients' regulations in terms of pump detention. Right? So we're here today, kind of just we want to explain what we think, in our opinion, would make your regulations be more adequate in terms of other engineers' designs to provide pump detention. And we can go into technical details. It's not a very long list, but certainly each item can be up for discussion. There are some variances on different criteria that we've noticed from multiple entities, other counties, Harris County Flood Control, Orange County Drainage District, and such. So we kind of want to come to a merged document, say, for such a criteria. So I'll turn it over to Cody. He has some other points that we want to talk about.
Good morning.
Morning, Cody.
This is a kind of a quick reminder, your current regulations, there's a paragraph in there that deals with pump detention facilities. And the very first sentence says pump detention facilities are generally not recommended. But then it goes on to say that if they are going to be used, they should possess sufficient capacity to discharge the 100-year peak discharge rate with the largest pump out of service or an emergency spillway. That's it. That's all the regulations in the entire document regarding pump facility, which is insufficient to say the least. So when we've received some submittals from developers, we've been kind of applying some additional regulations, requirements, which we've kind of taken from other entities, namely Orange County Drainage District, because their regs were similar to yours in that they didn't really want, or I guess they weren't recommending pump detention. Very similar topography, flat, but their regulations stated stormwater detention facilities requiring pumping systems are generally prohibited, with the exception of pumping dead storage, which is like maintenance or amenity water. It isn't really active storage. for stormwater detention. But it says pump detention may be allowed at the sole discretion of the district under the following conditions. And then they go on to list several items. You can see, those are the ones that we've kind of been using. And it says like a combination pump and gravity system shall be constructed, which means you can't just have pump detention. You've got to also have gravity built into your design. And I think we should actually expand on that and put in that, after leading Harris County Flood Control District, and some others, they actually take it a step further and say, about no more than 50% of the detention volume can be pumped out. The rest of it's got to be flowed by gravity. And then the additional requirements that you have to have a minimum detention rate of 1 acre-foot per acre for all your development. So if you're going to have pump detention, then regardless of what your design criteria calculations come out to be, if it's less than 1 acre-foot per acre, if you're developing 100 acres, you need at least 100 acre-feet of detention. So I'm just going to kind of run these, and then stuff like you need 2 pumps, a redundant pump system, on-site, on-site power, stuff like that, sensors, so you're pumping will remain off during a rain event, and you don't want to pump until after the storm event's passed. Stuff like that. Pump system must be accessible all over the road. So there's other technical requirements. Those are just the technical requirements. Beyond that, as far as design, I would suggest we put in some O&M requirements, because you're not going to maintain the system. You're not going to operate the system. And there's nothing in there right now that really says who would need to do that. Once this thing is accepted by the county and goes into effect, the subdivision is accepted, built, and goes into operation upon, you would need to know who's maintaining and operating this thing. Is it an HOA? Is it a developer? You got to be able to contact them. You'd want to know, you'd want to be able to go out there and inspect this thing, or at least, at the very least, have them required to submit to you an O&M inspection report, either quarterly or biannually, however you want to do it. Those are the kinds of things that I think need to be discussed and put into your regulation manual. Whether or not it requires inspection fees, or someone from Melinda staff, or reports or something like that. Those are non-existent in the current, but basically right now it says, like I said, pumps are not recommended, but if you have to have a pump, it's got to do the 100-year storm thing. Okay. We need the county needs.
Touch on the 100-foot, 100-foot acre, or acre-foot rather. I understand how it is, but the public might not. So, and it's a 100-acre pasture that's capable of holding 1 foot of water.
100 acre-foot, yeah, 100 acre was we measure the volume of storage detention pond in acre feet. So that's however many acres it could be times the depth of that pond.
Right.
If that pond is 5 acres and it's 5 feet deep, that's 25 acre feet.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, when you design a stormwater or a subdivision, your typical detention rates could be anywhere from about 0.5 to 0.75 acre feet per acre. That's an estimate on how much volume you're going to need on how big your subdivision is. So I asked around on why these pumping systems would have a higher rate. It's really just conservative values, all it is. Mm-hmm. It's meant to make sure that the pond itself is really as big or bigger than it needs to be to offset the amount of, because how slowly this thing's gonna drain. A gravity drain system is gonna drain so much faster than a pump.
Yeah.
A gravity is going to drain faster than a pump, sir?
Yes, sir.
Judge, I'm kind of concerned about TCEQ requirements on these as well, discharging into our ditches. I
Yeah.
can see it being on their pad or their property. What looks there stays there, but if it gets pumped into our ditches, then, I mean, I'm sure there's some monitoring and TCEQ requirements that needs to be met.
I mean, this is water that's going to go in there whether it's pumped or not.
Yeah, on big event rains, I'm sure there's some exceptions, but there's bound to be some requirements that we need to review through TCEQ about them discharging into our ditches. So that's what
The
my.
water is going to be discharged in the ditch either by gravity flow or pump.
When on normal days, I can see what you're talking about, gravity or slowly going in there. But big events, there might be some requirements we need to review with the state.
I'm not aware of any. I agree with you that the water is gonna, the downstream receiving stream is gonna be it regardless. Whether it's a pump detention.
Whether you got a pump detention, whether you got a detention period, even if you don't have a detention pond, the water is going.
That's probably where the water is going already.
Yeah.
Most likely. So all the detention pond is doing is slowing down the amount of water going into that stream, reducing the peak flow downstream, and holding that water and releasing it in a controlled method for up to like 48 hours after the storm event passes. That is the whole purpose of detention, is to reduce your peak flow during a storm event. So I'm not aware of any TCEQ regs that would affect that, because that's where the water would be going anyway.
Okay, good question. So on detention, which is necessary around here, being so flat, especially when you get up around Tarkin in that area, and Dayton's the same way, and Liberty is too, in this particular area. I'm sure probably Devers area.
County, yes.
Yeah, the whole county pretty much, but there's areas that do have some hills, but the 100-foot piece of, a 100-acre piece of property is not advantageous to a developer to carve that out of a potential subdivision and use it for detention. So we're talking about 10, a detention pond that's 10 by 10 feet deep, right?
10 acres.
10 acres, yeah.
10 feet deep. 100
Yeah, 10 acres, yeah. That could potentially be the point, in being that deep where the pump detention is necessary.
Well, I hesitate to use the word necessary.
Yeah.
Prefer would be a better word.
Okay,
They don't need pump detention. They prefer pump detention because it reduces the size of the pond.
right.
They go smaller footprint, but deeper. Smaller footprint means more lots to
Mhm.
sell. So,
Yeah.
that's the only reason you would want a pump detention, is to reduce the footprint of your pond.
Okay.
To increase the amount of lots you're going to sell.
Why would you not want a pump detention?
Why would the county not want one?
Yeah. Other than maintenance,
It's an active system that requires operation and more maintenance.
okay, yes,
Gravity system is a passive system. It's gonna work. As long as it's not plugged up and it's flowing free, as long as it's been maintained, it's gonna work. Do you have an outlet and a drainage system somewhere, a ditch? You have like basically you dam up a ditch with an outlet structure, and you put in an orifice below it, water to flow through. That dam compounds the water up, back up into the pond, right?
Yeah.
But then water is continuously flowing out through your orifice structure, and then you might have an overflow structure built into it.
yeah,
A pump detention requires that pump to have power. It requires someone to operate it.
yeah, I understand all that.
That's why you would not want one, is because it basically requires someone to be there.
Yeah, okay, other than the maintenance, I want to know if there's any problem.
Well, other than the operation,
Operation, and maintenance,
I know as long as it's working,
okay.
it's fine.
If we were going to allow it, we needed to make sure we have adequate, very strict regulations on how it's going to be maintained and operated.
Yeah, you would want to have records of who is the operator,
And,
you know, how do you get a hold of them? How are you going to ensure that someone's going to be out there during a storm event? You know, making
and
sure
regular inspections of it.
and regular inspections, right?
Yeah, okay.
So in addition to the design requirements, you have to have those requirements also.
Okay,
And I would like some kind of spillway in case something doesn't work
Yes.
on these years down the road. And we haven't kept up with it. At that point in time, we have a 500-year or even 100-year flood. When things don't work, it can overflow in a safe manner.
Yeah, that's one of the few actual requirements you currently have is if pump facilities would require a 100-year peak discharge rate with the largest pump out of service, you have to have at least 2 pumps.
Correct.
With the largest pump out of service, you still have to be able to pump here. Or an emergency spillway shall be provided. So that's already in there, but we'll kind of expand upon that and basically make it out better. But that's in all the requirements is that you have to have an emergency spillway there.
yeah,
Because ultimately, whatever design storm we're building this to, whether it's or 100, at some point, you'll probably get a bigger storm, right? That isn't this pond and that outlet structure or that pump isn't designed to pump against. That's when you would want to have an emergency overflow structure. You want to have a controlled area where water's flowing out, not reaching the pond on all sides.
yeah.
You know, I can see where this would be advantageous to a developer. You know, why not? We have a smaller footprint potentially and a deeper hole. Okay. I'm just looking at the safety side of it, then also vandalism. You know, if you had to have 2 pumps out there, electrical supply might not be there during a storm event. It's not going to work. You better have propane. Who's going to, you know, what happens then? We're going to have to look at this pretty.
No, yeah,
Pretty
I
hard.
fully recommend you look into it, even consult your county attorney and say,
Yeah.
you know, what if, you know, there's always a what if even on a gravity structure.
Yeah.
During you know, if for whatever reason a basketball plugs up a couple of pipes and the thing can't flow, you know, but that's a maintenance issue. You know, we just got to make sure that the county is, but again, the county isn't maintaining those ponds anyway, or the structures. But the probability of something going wrong is higher on a pump system. There's so many more moving parts to a pump system that requires manpower and auxiliary power, on-site power, you know, backup, that isn't there for a gravity system. Which is why after talking to Warren County, which is why they make it clear in theirs, it's generally not recommended. They really don't want them. But if someone is dead set on using them, they put in all these extra requirements to require them.
I would think that our county would want the same thing. We're not in favor of them.
Right.
But in case you just have to, then have a higher stringent regulations to control those.
I agree. Like that's definitely your best interest.
Yeah, TCEQ does have a lot of regulations on.
Leon, how you feeling about pump detention right now, brother?
I'm still in taking all of this. I could see to where there would be some problems with it. Potential problems. But yeah, I still, in my mind, I still need to hear a little more, do a little more judgments, thinking about the ifs, ands, don'ts, do's, cans, and can'ts.
Yeah.
At this point in time, you know, we're trying to get to the bottom of what, you know, we want to do and what we don't want to do, but I still haven't seen or heard yet where now, being recommended that, we may want to stay away from this, or we may want to do it.
Mhm.
I'm still on the fence with it.
Well, if it was so common, everybody would have one, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think really, Manuel, Cody, if we're gonna look at this a little bit further, I would say look at the Orange County rules and see what they've come up with, and then if we need to enhance them some more, let's do that. To where you're not just saying no, but at the same token, enhance it enough to where it's like, you better think about what you're asking for.
Yeah, but
Right.
I haven't found any entity, whether it be a drainage district or county or city, that prohibits them outright,
Yeah.
And I'm not sure of the legality of them being able to do that anyway.
Yeah.
It is a design option that can be done. But I think what all these agencies do, or entities, is they have just stricter criteria on.
Have you seen any place where this is used, really? I mean, have you gone out like in Harris County? Do they use pump detention in Harris County?
I haven't seen them, but I've talked to other engineers in our Houston offices, and they are aware of it. And
Yeah.
they told me that, and they're the ones who pointed to me to these regulations. They say that that's why that you can't just have a purely pumped facility. I think in Harris County it says no more than 50% of your volume can be pumped out.
Okay.
You can't just have
But they do have. pump
you
stations.
can't have a pond that's the size of a swimming pool that's 100 feet deep, groundwater notwithstanding, and then pump that thing out over 10 days. It's got to be a reasonable.
Yeah,
Half of it's got to be able to drain by gravity, and then you can pump the rest of it out later.
yeah, that kind of stuff is reasonable, yes.
Yeah.
What about any other areas, Montgomery County, Chambers County, they use it, they use.
You know about Chambers County? Not sure.
I've not heard of anything there.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I'll check with Bobby.
Ask Bobby and see, because he'd know, he's been there long enough. Yeah. Maybe that's part of their economic development rules, under impact fees possibly, or something. I have no idea. I mean, I know they use them there. Drainage.
Yeah, I know that they
Specifically.
have similar, no increase, requirements that almost always necessitates use of a detention pond. But, we do some of the reviews for Chambers County, but only the ones that are within Trinity Bay Conservation District,
Right.
which is east of the river.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen any on that side that have port ponds. But they've only had, gravity systems.
Yeah.
So.
I'd say we can't vote on anything today, of course. We're just discussing, but I'd be willing to look at it a little closer, but
Yeah, there's one other thing I want to mention that besides the purpose of selling more lots, right? One of the not requirements, but one of the things that may necessitate a developer wanting to use a pump detention facility. It all depends on the topography of the land and the receiving stream.
Mhm.
We had one that was I don't remember the name of it in Liberty County, but their proposed drainage, the only way they could drain their site was into a county ditch, roadside ditch, right?
yeah,
And that ditch wasn't very deep. Right, and they had to have detention because they were, increasing the flow on their site. But if they were to only have a gravity system, their pond would have been a lot bigger than it really needed to be, because they were so limited on the vertical, that they just didn't have somewhere downstream of them that they could drain this water to, because the ditch itself wasn't very deep. So, they proposed to have pumps in it. That's a good use of pumps there, in my opinion.
And we're so flat in areas, we've got a lot of areas kind of like that too.
Yeah, you very well could. That sometimes the roadside ditches just aren't very deep, right? And they've got to send their water somewhere.
Mhm.
And if they've got to have a pond to offset the amount of flow that they're increasing, they may want to go a little deeper and pump some of that
I mean, you got a pretty good feel of what we're looking at and what we're considering. You've got a pretty good feel for the area.
Yep.
Could you write us up some regulations and?
We could, I think we have a good feel on the technical side of it. I think we could work with Melinda a little more on what y'all may want for the O&M side of it. You know, how do y'all want to, do y'all want to inspect these things, or do you want to require the owner to submit you annual or biannual reports that says they've inspected it? You know, those are the kinds of things that, you know, remain to be decided, you know.
I think it would
How much control do
need,
you want to have on the inspection and the stuff like that?
I think it's something that needs to be submitted to our permitting office, and I think it needs to be biannual instead of annually, because too much happens within a year's time.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's something that we want to go out and inspect,
Yeah.
but have an inspection sent to, because I'm looking at all these old subdivisions that 20, 30 years old, that there's even that had HOAs just no longer being maintained or has disintegrated. And that's what I'm afraid is going to happen with these pump detentions.
Yeah, I'm trying to find which one it was, but one of these was flood control district or Harris County. One of them had a very similar. Yeah, here it is. Part of it is, this would be something that Melinda's office would have to deal with this. They would, you know, the owner has to provide emergency contact information for the owners, engineers, and operators responsible for the O&M of the pond and pumps. And then I think it was annually provide a report that says that they've inspected it and the pumps are in operating condition, you know, well maintained, whatever.
I definitely want that in there.
Yeah, so we can put that in easily.
And we're getting that new software, and it's gonna be easier to track.
Mhm.
We're gonna have the ability for developers to actually log into the system and upload their information. So it's gonna, our tracking is gonna be 100 times better than what we had before.
Okay. Well, I just look at it, you're trading population density for a potential problem. I mean, that's just the way I look at it, but there it is. We wave around a little bit, we get the lights come back on. Yeah, that's just it. Make them tough.
Yeah.
You gotta look
Yeah.
at rules.
Yeah.
Make it just as rough as you can, because it.
Yeah, we've got a pretty good set right now that's, I would say 90% based on Orange County. I think I still want to kind of comb through some other agencies and kind of pick and choose the, you know, the best areas and how to improve yours. Well, we can give a draft recommendation, you know, to Melinda to review and both the technical and the regulatory, you know, O&M side of it.
Yeah.
And then we can go from there.
Yeah, because I have a developer right now that wants to do a pump detention.
Mhm.
And they want to leave the onus on the HOA, but I'm like, Bruce, what happens 25 years down the road?
Where's this at?
It's gone, you know.
Where is it located?
This one is up in precinct 2,
We're at,
up towards the Tarkington area. Just above 105.
Yeah. Well, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it becomes a retention
Right.
pond. And then I look at potential for a mosquito
We can
breeding
leave it
factory.
to the HOAs, but
Yeah.
what happens in the future when the HOA is dissolved?
well, we approved one already up there.
What do you,
That to answer Melinda's question though, I think that's
Yeah.
something that's gonna have to be asked of the county attorney, you know, if these things are owned and operated by the HOA. And at some point, if that HOA is dissolved or whatever, what kind of legal language is in there that says, and then we're back to the developer? What if that developer is no longer in business?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I don't know the answer to those questions.
Yeah, they're gone.
I don't know what happens at that point.
Right.
you know, in a pond like this, Cody, you look at the slope, you know, like a 3-to-1 slope. Y'all look at that?
You talking about the side slope of the pond?
Yes, yeah. And what is not advantageous for a mosquito to live? A 3-to-1, roughly?
Well, 3 to 1 is really just a side slope, you know, for
Yeah.
earthen. That's where that's the flattest you would want an earthen slope to be.
Right.
Mosquitoes will live in any body of water.
Okay.
Right.
I want to hear that. That's right.
So I don't think the side slope of the detention pond really matters. I mean, if there's a pool of water or any standing water,
Mhm.
unfortunately, mosquitoes are pretty resilient.
And the smaller it is, the less wave action can
Taking
be
hold.
potential
Yeah.
too. Okay.
So the difference in the gravity and the pump is the size of the detention pond itself.
Generally, yeah, if you're gonna pump it out, you can go deeper.
So the only reason why we would even discuss pump is so the developer can have more land to put houses on or whatever.
More often than not, that's going to be the reason why they want to have a smaller pond, smaller in footprint, to allow them to have more lots.
I know progress is coming, gentlemen, but I don't like pump detention ponds.
Not at all.
All of them have spillway, right?
Yes, you are required to have emergency overflow spillway. In case the amount of water exceeds the desired capacity, that you dictate where that water goes downstream at. Instead of just everywhere.
Okay.
We're back in the light.
Wow. All righty then. I guess we got an idea of what direction to go.
Right, so timeline wise, I know we've got a couple that's been knocking on our door continuously,
Constantly.
almost probably
They
every once a
email us,
week.
but yeah, I was gonna say, they email me and I, it's weekly.
At some point, you know, we can't just choose to ignore their emails. I think we need to respond quarterly and mainly just to let them know what's the timeline on when can we get these regulations.
Can y'all have something together by first Commissioners Court in January, Jay?
We can have some recommendations now,
Because you can share it with Melinda. Melinda can then share it with each commissioner without
Right,
having another workshop, without it being a walking quorum.
yes. The only thing I can't speak on is any kind of input from the county attorney
Yeah.
on Melinda's concerns about ownership and, you know, stuff
Right.
like that, you know. We could write it up however we want, but I don't know what would happen.
And what repercussions we would have against the developer or HOA in the event that they stopped maintaining
Right.
or
like that.
they dissolved in
Right.
this 30 years down the road.
We can say we can require a biannual inspection report, but what if they don't do it?
How about a bond or something, not a bond, but like we do a road bond, you know, to have so much money in case they fail or the HOA dissolves or something happens 30 years down the road, in which I don't know how you would have to keep increasing that amount of money, but some kind of guarantee that the county would have that if they wasn't there to fix it, it's going to fall back on the county.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to, I'm just out of curiosity, I'm gonna call around to other counties and drainage districts and find out how they handle that sort of.
Yeah.
So the footprint would be smaller for the pump there, right?
Typically.
Yeah, the pond is
So-
It's probably the whole
Like you say,
idea.
if 20 years later, they just go out of business, whatever, we're not doing the pump no more, then the detention pond needs to be bigger.
Large
Yeah.
to kind of, if you wanted to convert it to a gravity system per se.
Right, so
You
who
need
would
to-
do that? See,
All right.
it's the developer's own bond.
correct. And that's, I would call it about
Yeah, to retrofit that. it
Yeah.
definitely would.
Okay, so I can get with, Matthew and Catherine on that, the legality side of what we do. Just kind of put a bug in their ear until we get the recommendations. You guys want to send the recommendations to myself, I can get, like you said, with each commissioner individually.
Yeah.
Talk and then get their input and then go to the next one and get their input and then send the different inputs from all the commissioners back to you. And then we can present it, what the,
Either that or they can draft up something and send it to you, you can send it to us
right,
for us to approve or disapprove and then add any comments that we wanted to add to it. Yeah.
That would
And
take some of the footwork out.
Leon, what do you think?
When is the first meeting in January?
Second Tuesday.
Once again, it's still gonna take, as far as I'm concerned, it's still gonna take a little more study
Yeah.
and thought process with this.
Well, you want Manuel and Cody to keep digging into it a little bit better?
I do, I really
Okay.
do.
I do too.
I can see where there's but a lot of potential for problems down the road.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
First meeting in January is on the 9th. So it really doesn't give them a whole lot of time to,
well, like I said, we have several
I know,
people out there that's wanting them and we can't
keep pushing them
keep,
off.
we can't keep putting them off.
The next meeting in January is the 23rd.
I think the 23rd would be a better date.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's holidays, you're not gonna get a lot done. I
No,
mean, I'm serious.
everybody's gonna be,
And we can't tell them no.
right.
So on our end, I think we can definitely get something to Melinda by next week, right, before the holidays to review. Of course, that won't include probably any input from Matthew at that time, but at least we have the bulk of the design criteria.
And then when it's done, and I can also forward that to Matthew for their input.
Okay.
All right.
I believe we're good. David, you good?
I'm good.
Lee, you good? I mean, you know, you do some engineering stuff on the side, don't you? Yeah.
No, actually, when you were talking about other counties, I was thinking the ones that have similar rice field development areas,
Right.
maybe Brazoria, Fort Bend, what they're doing with like lower lying areas
Yeah.
of their retention ponds, because I'm sure they're addressing the same thing,
Absolutely.
you know,
I'd say my
canal
concern
systems
is
and
that
whatnot. Yeah.
motor going down
Yeah.
20, 30 years later.
Exactly.
Now this thing
And
has
then
to
the
be.
biannual reports would help to see that they're keeping their O and M taken care of.
I don't want to wait a year, once a year. That's why I say.
To find out something's wrong, exactly.
I mean, we have emergency backup generators we crank every Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of one of those deals where
Would this be something like the roads where the county would need to take it over after a certain period of time and it
No.
becomes the
No.
county? You don't want to do that?
No, absolutely not.
Well, then, yeah, you got some issues.
Yeah.
So,
At least
All
if we're getting reports every 6 months, we know when we stop getting those reports that there's a problem somewhere.
and Melinda has
Well,
some,
we don't have the manpower in my office.
yeah, and you have a method of tracking it this way.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Yes.
okay. All right. We're good. Anybody else got anything?
Nope.
All right. Leon, you got anything else?
No,
We good? All right, David? Nothing? Greg?
Right.
Bruce already spoke his piece.
That's it.
Chief, got anything to do?
No, I'm good,
All
thanks.
good. All right. All right, well, let's call it, this meeting adjourned.
Gentlemen, please sign that letter for me before you leave. You signed a copy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Letter.
That way I have y'all's, it's the second